All right, bruh fans, we are here to talk about Season 3, Episode 2, The Morning After. John looks to Tom for support when he discovers that Officer Grills has a secret. Now, out of the 3 episodes, I would say this was the weakest of the 3 because it got to the trope, and this kind of happens in episode 3 as well, but I could argue episode 3 was probably worse in terms of drawn out scenes, but it really felt like this episode was definitely the bottom of the totem pole out of the 3 episodes we got yesterday. So I'm giving it a 6 out of 10. Now keep in mind, it doesn't mean that it was awful. It's just that it wasn't great. But at the same time, it's episode 2. I mean, it's only the beginning of the season. I'd much rather have a semi-lackluster episode after a premiere as opposed to the premiere being lackluster. Just my thoughts on that. But here we go. We got John on the phone with Tom because Lydia had stepped out of the bedroom to take a shower after she made it clear that, oh wow, okay, we're going to have a baby. Wait, what? So John is instantly regretting this decision he made to, well, I believe the phrase is raw dog Lydia as opposed to using protection. Now, turns out Tom actually made it back to town last night, and thankfully his mother's doing a lot better, which semi-contradicts what Greg told Miss Alice in the last episode, that he didn't know when Tom was coming back to town. Okay, so in any case, John wants to get a morning after pill, and he'll stop by the hospital to get it. Honestly, I feel like this review might be on the short side, just because not too much happens. It kind of sets up stuff, but not too much goes down. Alright, so sorry about my chair. It's really squeaky today for some reason. So John's getting ready to pretty much, get dressed for work and sneak out of the apartment so he can stop by the hospital, then go down to the sandwich shop. But Lydia actually comes out of the shower, and he pretty much is like, hey, I gotta go to work. She's like, oh, I could take you. Oh, no, it's good. Because remember, he has to go to the hospital first and then go to the sandwich shop. But basically, it's like, hey, you finish your shower. Then you get dressed so you can go. Make sure you lock the door when you leave. Oh, you trust me to stay? Which, honestly, didn't she steal a remote and can opener and scissors basically the last time she was at the apartment, just so she would have an excuse to run into him again in season 2? So I don't know if I would trust her to be around stuff, but then again, that's just me. But I guess after sex things change. I wouldn't know. So we go over to him trying to make his way out of the door, and she goes back to the shower. I mean, after, pretty much going down a list of slasher film names for the name of their child, he or she, which is kind of interesting due to the fact that it is Friday the 13th. Yeah, I ain't going no damn where. You ain't going to get no bad luck around here. I'll tell you that right now. Also, forgot to mention this in my episode 1 review, but at the very end, after they had sex, John was feeling on Lydia. Oh, you feel so soft. Well, of course, I'm a girl. And he goes, have you always been a girl? Yes, silly. Oh, yeah, you just don't know nowadays. I forgot to mention that because I'm like, oh, okay. I wonder if that's kind of a nod to the whole Darren, now Darla thing, because that's one of the big story beats of this episode. And if that's the case, again, good continuity. Okay, so Alice actually comes in as Lydia goes back into the shower, and my thought is, wait a minute, who's running the sandwich shop? But then, even though we haven't seen her character since season 1, I believe Laura was the name of the other employee at the sandwich shop, because I'm literally like, wait, so Miss Alice went down to open the sandwich shop, okay, but who's at the shop when she's come back to the apartment to see what John's doing? So in any case, John confronts his mom about letting Lydia in, and this is something I'm scratching my head about, because that's one thing about bruh sometimes that throws me off. There's a lot of he said, she said, and sometimes it's complicated when a character says, I didn't say this, I didn't say that, and that's either contradicted later on in the same episode or in 1 or 2 episodes later where they said, oh, well, I did do that. Or they lie to somebody about doing something and they never explicitly give a reason as to why they did it. I mean, in the next scene with Alice and Lydia, it's sort of explained, but I'll get to that in a moment. But yeah, Alice basically says that she didn't let that girl in here. She acts surprised that she allegedly picked the lock. Oh, she broke into my house. She's using up my water, running up the bill, and this and that. So basically, John goes to the sandwich shop. So John is actually at the hospital now to get the morning after pill, and they kind of, just kind of catch up with each other. Well, hey, I'm sorry about not asking about your mom first, and then the conversation shifts to Greg and Darla, and John brings up the fact that it was originally Darren, now Darla, and yeah, there's a lot of back and forth in this scene, as well as the next scene when Greg shows up. But just to quickly summarize, Tom, lets John know that Greg, John, just let it go, because it seems like Greg is really into Darla, and if he knows about Darla, who she was and who she is now, he seems cool with it. Greg isn't on the DL, he's free, and John wants to, it's kind of in the same vein as, remember the Red Table Talk when Jada said entanglement and Will was like, entanglement. So, I mean, you mean like you and August had a relationship? Yeah, well, we had an entanglement. It's like, stop beating around the bush and tell me what you really mean. That's kind of what I felt in this episode, or should I say, that's how it felt John was when he was trying to get answers out of Tom. And then Greg felt the same way towards John once he comes to the scene a little bit later. But essentially, John's like, well, does Mike know? Does Bill know? And Tom's like, look, it doesn't matter. I mean, it just matters what Greg thinks. So he also moves subjects over to the morning after pill and the fact that, you need to use protection, and I think you need to get tested. It's like basically giving John an after school lesson about, sex education. So he actually leaves the room to get the morning after pill. All right, so now we got Miss Alice, turning off the water from the kitchen to get Lydia out of the shower. And it turns out that she did let Lydia come into the apartment and ask her not to tell John that she was the one to do it. But then Lydia shocks Alice by telling her that, hey, your son, he's actually really big. It's like, what? No, come on, really? Oh, my boy. All right, so essentially, okay, and this is just my interpretation of it. It's clear Miss Alice really likes Lydia and vice versa. But the reason that she let Lydia come back in is because John, well, any man in general, they don't know what they want, or, men with little sticks, I'm not going to say the other word to avoid demonetization, they don't know what they want, so you got to make him want you or something along those lines. So essentially, it's almost like Miss Alice is manipulating the situation in order for John to get with Lydia, kind of in the same vein, maybe not exactly the same, but early haves and have-nots where Veronica orchestrated this entire situation with Melissa to seduce her son and then have sex so she can get pregnant to prevent her son from being a gay man. This was season 1 of Have and Have Nots, or season 2, depending on how OWN advertised it. So honestly, yeah, it is the same thing. While I was ovulating, I wanted to get pregnant, but then we learned in episode 3 that apparently this whole baby thing was not part of Alice's scheme. So she basically rushes Lydia to get ready. Look, I ain't leaving you here with all my good stuff by yourself. You better go in there and get dressed and get out of here, because I gotta go back to work at the sandwich shop. I just stopped by to see what was going on. All right, so she goes in the bathroom to call John, and he asks her to come by the job to talk. And apparently, yeah, she does say that, Miss Alice did let her in, and she can hear everything because the walls are too thin in that apartment. All right, so she says, I'll come by the shop later on so we can talk. And remember, John's at the hospital getting the morning after pill. Greg comes in, chop it up for a bit. Hey, what's going on? You're blowing up my phone. Oh, no, nothing. Don't worry about it. And essentially, so how was your night last night? How was your day? Oh yeah, we're cool. We're just friends. And there's a lot of double talk as to whether or not he was straight, or if you're good, or if you're seeing other people. And yeah, it's just a lot of blah 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 blah. So turns out he has dinner with Darla later that night, and he mentions the whole Darren Darla thing, and it switches gears to hey, chill. People are people. And it's like, hey, don't worry about it. It's like I just didn't want her to fool you. And this was the part of the conversation. I'm like, oh, now we're getting somewhere, because he's like, oh yeah, well, she told you, right? Well, not exactly. Wait, so you're telling me she didn't tell you when y'all first met? And that kind of got Greg thinking. Well, no, she didn't. And I was like, okay, now we're getting somewhere. So Greg actually, leaves after him and John kind of, I guess, mend fences, so to speak. And John is waiting for Tom to come back with the pill. So last scene of the episode, Bill is trying to find the words to talk about getting the marriage annulled when Hilda comes in randomly. Sound like she was unlocking the door, and she just strolls in. If I were Bill, I'm like, what? Who are you? But long story short, it turns out that she actually saw Bill at the wedding, the one that Peter and Regina were having. Remember that one from season 1? And it turns out that despite Regina and Bill apparently, well, let's scratch that. Back in college, I believe, or maybe not college, but a few years ago, Regina and Bill were really serious, but apparently Bill never met Regina's mom. So the episode ends with her declaring that, hey, my bags are out there. Help me get them, and I'm moving in. And that's the end of the episode. So yeah, despite not really being the best episode, I will say I think that I enjoyed the episode more talking about it out loud than when I was watching it in certain bits. So that's something. But yeah, I'm still sticking with the score of a 6 out of 10. But that's really all I got to say about this particular episode. So stay tuned as we dive into episode 3 in my next video. Make sure you like and subscribe, hit that bell icon and select all. That way you don't miss out when I post content, and I'll catch you in the next one.